Добрий день, з вами
Welcome. My name is Olga Tamanova, and I welcome everybody joining us at Ukraine Media Center on the 541st day of the full-scale occupation of our country. We'll be talking about the situation in the south. The host that we are talking to is Natalia Humeniuk, the head of the United Coordinating Press Center of the Security and Defense Forces of the south of Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Madam, what is the situation in the southern part of the country, the shellings, if you could brief us on the latest developments? The situation is complex and tense. The enemy does not cease to shell us in spite of the problems with the logistics and the supply lines. What they're trying to do is to pressure the civilians. This is their main target. They are shelling the right bank of the Dnieper River in the regions of Kyiv and other settlements. The right-hand bank of the Dnieper River are being shelled, and especially the points where people are receiving humanitarian aid. The enemy is trying to mark their presence, the fire presence in the Liman region and in the Kyiv and Kuturovsk regions. Luckily enough, we haven't had any victims of these shellings. The intensity of the bombardment has decreased, which testifies to the fact that they are experiencing some lack of munitions compared to 88 bombardments and artillery fire. We also see the fewer shellings. As for the reconnaissance missions in the Dnieper River reservoir, in the islands, we see the boats and we fire at them. We have shot 3 boats and almost 30 personnel. This is to say that their focus on the left bank of the Dnieper River is less intensified. They are regrouping and sending forces to where the hostilities are intense. Madam, can we say that our forces have already found some foothold on the right-hand side bank? You see, it's not a matter of proclaiming some success. We want to see where the counter-battery activities have done their job for our assault missions to get a foothold. This is a message for everyone who wants to have some breaking news exposed. Every news to that effect means that people in the left-hand bank side of the river will suffer. Every news that we have established a foothold on the other side of the bank means that the shelling will be intensified. When people say that we have our forces on the other hand, and people tend to suffer in terms of the humanitarian disaster, people's homes are still flooded. So the forces of defense are pursuing other strategy. You have to believe only authorized sources of information. The counter-battery activities is the center point. We understand that the forces of defense is to disrupt the logistics lines of the occupying force. What's going on in terms of these supply lines, the state of the bridges that they use? Can you tell us about that? You see, what they are doing is to repair the logistics or transportation lines, including bridges in Chuharsk and Genichisk, and also they have announced the bus route to those areas, which means that they are trying to make a good impression. But the bridges are in a condition that only passenger traffic can go over those bridges. They want to establish some connections, but let us not forget that under the guise of the civilian traffic, they can disguise the transfer of their logistics. But technically speaking, these bridges will not be able to carry that kind of transportation. They are also using the route number M17. In the land part of the left bank side of the Dnieper River, they are able to maneuver their forces, but they have some need of the ammunition in other parts. So the Kherson region seems to be relieved in those terms. Black Sea is the special point of attention. The rocket carriers, missile carriers, what's going on there, and what is the state of the civilian traffic? The ships, what we are observing is that in the southern eastern part of the Crimean Peninsula, all the way to the Novorossiysk region, they have 13 ships in that area. One is covering the way to the Azov Sea. We don't see any missile carriers on duty. We are now watching the civilian ships' routes. They have established the so-called inspections in the Kerch region. Another question has to do with the prolongation of the season of bathing. Do we have an information that in the city of Odessa people are now allowed to go to the beaches? You see, it's a matter for the local authorities. Yes, we know that there are some recreation zones open to the public. All the precautionary measures have been taken care of to minimize the risks to the lives of the civilian population. They have some watch points and the shelters have been established, and also the system of informing population of the dangers. But this is an experiment because this is a unique situation. Such nets have never been taken advantage of before, and they have yet to prove their efficiency. We will hope that critical situations will not care, but we should stay careful. You see, there must be a trust to the authorities, but you should be careful about your own safety. Questions from the floor. Ukrinform, Natalia Molchanova. The occupying force have refused and have banned all the routes between two different settlements. What is the situation and why that ban has been announced? The ban has to do with the geographical peculiarities because it gives the access to the basin and reservoir where the groups of counteroffensive are working, but every day we destroy 1 to 5 boats that they are using. As for these dates in these particular regions, it perhaps has to do with the rotation of their forces, where the equipment will be moved. Now they are reorienting their fire lines to the Kinberg region, and they want to distract our forces of defense to that area. In this sense, they may be using such policing actions to impact the civilians, to make sure that the information is not divulged and is not put into the public domain. You also mentioned that the Russian ships have been withdrawn to the maximum distance from the fire accessibility of the Ukrainian forces. Does that mean that on the day of independence, we are unlikely to see massive bombardments from the Black Sea Fleet? Such a threat is still there. Remember that even from that harbor, they are able to hit any point in the territory of Ukraine. We should not be complacent. We should also remember that they're very attentive to these sacred dates. This is important for them. So there is a possibility of bombardment, both surface rocket carriers and underwater, including the attack UVAs. So there is a possibility and likelihood of such a threat that will grow as we approach the Independence Day. But the fact that there are no ships on duty may indicate that they are getting ready and getting armed. What we have seen over the 2 last days may testify to the fact that they are coordinating their different forces. We have questions from the floor.
Renzo from Corriere della Sera from Italia. So we have a little bit, 2 or 3 questions, but let's start with the first one. Sorry, can you be more precise, more specific on this operation on the eastern side of the Dnipro River occupied by the Russian? Can you say clearly that now, today, there is a presence, a fixed, stable presence of Ukrainian soldiers, special teams who crossed by boat in the last few weeks, and they are there, they have a stronghold. And can you give us an idea what they are doing? At the beginning we were told, I think from Russian sources, they talk about 7 boats, about 40 soldiers. I assume there are now more, or are they still there? Can you give us any detail? Thank you.
Про успіхи можна говорити тоді, коли
You see, when we have established a foothold, we will call it a success. We should trust only the authorized sources, not listen to the so-called analytics who say that they think that we have established our presence. Counter battery fire is the center of our activities. We have to clear the territory of the enemy for our forces to move forward. That's why we target and destroy the reconnaissance boats. When you look at that particular plot on the map, you will see that they are routing among the islands, and this is very difficult when they have the ability to bring in resources and equipment. We have a lot of information about such boats. They are continuing to move. We continue to destroy them. There are a lot of those boats, and we want to secure the lives of our soldiers.
Able at the moment, sorry if I insist, you are not able at the moment to tell us clearly that you have a fixed permanent presence on the other side of the river, right?
я сказала, що такого немає.
I've said that there is no established footholds. There are specifics of conducting military operations, and to make it a breaking news means that we will endanger the forces of defense. Which part of this war do you support, sir?
And Madam, a second question. In the last weeks, there were missiles which fall. There are 2 names which I don't remember on the bridges which are connecting North Crimea to the Kherson area. There are 3 main bridges. 2 were attacked, Armyansk and the other one. Okay. Are these bridges open? What is the situation? Are you succeeding in doing as you did in last fall, when the fall of Kherson, when the liberation of Kherson was guaranteed by the destruction of the bridges on the Dnipro River?
Чонгарський і Генічеський
Chonhar and Genishsk bridges have been substantially damaged, but the occupiers are trying to repair them. They want to establish the connecting lines over those bridges. They have announced the civil trafficking over those bridges. But as for the heavy military equipment, these bridges will not be able to carry that load. That's why they are trying to establish a pontoon connections. If we have targeted fixed bridges, we will also target the pontoons. We want to exacerbate and disrupt their supply lines to make sure that they have only one accessible road through the city of Armyansk.
Allowed me the third question. We were together the day after the attack, the Russian attack against the cathedral in Odessa. We went to see the harbor, the main harbor in Odessa, with the Italian delegation, do you remember? In that day, the manager of the harbor told us there were about 40 foreign cargo, big ships, were still blocked from the beginning of the war. And as far as I understood, one of them yesterday, in the last hours, recently, successfully went out with this new corridor. Can you tell us what does it mean? Is this a real new established corridor? Are the other boat moving? And this corridor is only for this boat, which have supposed to leave Odessa harbor after so many years, after so many months, or is also for incoming boats? Thank you.
Україною було позначено
The navigation passage of the ships that have been blocked since last year in the ports of the Odessa region in a certain direction. This is a direct direction. In the city, you will understand, the corridor is different from the land. Its corridor is not as safe as it used to be, because when we talk about the demining or mining and demining of the sea area, such corridor has to be checked by our forces for the ship to go forward. Indeed, the first ship has gone along this corridor, which is to say that both incoming and outgoing ships can go, unless we suffer from another rocket or missile attacks. While the ship is moving in the sea, it can be attacked. The major indication here is the claim of the owner of the ship that they are ready to face all the circumstances. On our side, we have guaranteed all the conditions in Ukrainian territory waters, but we should be aware, as it happened with the Turkish ship, the Russian forces behave like pirates, so the situation is precarious and dangerous. Olga Makarin, the Crimea correspondent at Ukrinform. How many Russians have left Crimea after the latest explosions? Specific data are not available, but what we see that the traffic is very tense. There is only one way out of Crimea. There are long queues toward the Crimea bridge. So the trend is for people to leave the Crimean Peninsula. We seem to have been disrupted for a second or two. People are continuing to leave, even if it's a danger to go along the M17 road. It's quite close to the area of hostilities, and they go along the occupied territories in the mainland in the Zaporizhia region. For them, for the civilians, it's quite dangerous, but there is a traffic there, very tense traffic. A general sentiment in the Crimea area is that, you see, it can be described in colorful terms. Blue and yellow are people who are waiting to be liberated by the Ukrainian forces, and other colors are people who are still believe that they will be defended by the Russian Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to the head of the coordination center of the Defense Forces South Command. We appreciate your being here. We plan our agenda for tomorrow. Stay tuned, and we will be working to bring closer our victory. Glory to Ukraine.